Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Glam and today I am presenting you a beautiful, stunning retro glam eyeshadow palette. This is the mid-size palette retailing for 69 US dollars for 15 pan of eyeshadows. I do not think that this kind of color story will get much use in my collection. Regardless, it looks beautiful. So when it went on sale for $34, I was like, okay, sold. So I got it. We're going to swatch this palette on my light olive skin tone and we are going to compare it to other Natasha Denona palettes. The Zendo palette, I feel like it has some similar shades that could be dupes. We'll figure that out in a bit. We'll do two looks, one on each eyes, and then jump to the conclusion. Now let's get right into it. The Retro Glam eyeshadow palette comes in this cardboard packaging. It's beautiful and all the shades informations are in the back. This is the 3D new packaging that I only have two palettes. The I Need a Nude, which I have a review for. I will link it in the description box. Make sure you check that one out. That one is absolutely chef's kiss. This one also is the thicker packaging versus the more classic Natasha Denona mid-side packaging. This is the Zendo palette. It's thinner. It's gonna take up a little bit more space in your drawer. The trade-off is that you get to see a beautiful 3D imprint in here. This palette includes her classic mattes such as Sage, Lucy, Holly, Belle, Fringe, Faye. This evergreen shade is a cream to powder formula, which is beautiful. We'll talk about the differences in a little bit. A lot of the shimmer formula, and then this one is the kind of like a topper formula, which I really enjoy. Is her newer formula that she just came out with in her recent palette. This palette is part of the extension for the mini retro palette. So they have the mid-sized retro palette, which is a burgundy, vampy, monochromatic kind of palette that I'm really excited to get one day. When that one is on sale, I'm gonna grab it next. And then we have this one, which is leaning on the green colors of the original mini retro palette. One thing that I noticed with Natasha Denona palettes, a lot of her colors are the same undertone and the same color, just different depth. Such as Sage and Fringe, very similar in tone. It's just one is a little bit deeper. That's pretty common in Natasha Denona palettes. Let me see in the Zendo palette if that's the case in here. Sense and Tranquil are kind of like the same color, but one is deeper and the same texture as well. Calm and Relief are kind of like very similar. It's just a thing that I noticed, and I think this is on purpose because when you have a color story like this, first of all, when you have the same color, just different depth, it stays within the theme, right? The ease of use. So if someone who is afraid to do a brighter look, something like the green family here, they have already like kind of a gradient, right, of the same colors or like different finishes of the similar tones. They can use more random combinations of colors and still create beautiful looks with whatever combo that they choose to go with. I think that's why these palettes are so universally flattering and beloved, is because it's so easy to use. That's why I'm really curious to see if I can pull off a green look. If I can, then this palette is amazing, right? Because I really am quite intimidated by these tones. Still, it looks absolutely beautiful, so let's get to the swatching. I adjusted the exposure of the camera, so hopefully that's a little bit better for the swatches. But we're just gonna go by the row from left to right, and I'm just going to point out the colors as we go. We have the first four shades. First up, we have Flare, absolutely beautiful metallic pinkish red undertone and a light pink glitter top. Jazzy, which is also a shimmer formula. This shade is working more like a satin to me. It doesn't have the shimmers found in Flare. So it's gonna be great as a deepening shade, but you know, it's gonna have that flow of a satin color. Oscar, this is a metallic silver bronze. It has a lot more silver in it, and it's subtle at the same time, so I really like it. Evergreen is a cream to powder formula. Again, I don't have anything in my collection that is quite like this green. The last color on the first row is called Marlin. Metallic light green. The greens in this palette, they have been like muted. Like there are a lot of grays. They're all dusty colors, which I really in love with right now. Second row now, we have Maxi. Very smooth shimmer color. Sage, absolutely beautiful powder matte. Look at that pigmentation. Holly, powder matte. Fringe, another powder matte. Faye, last shade on the second row. This I'm very excited about. In the pan, it looks a lot more olive, greenish, but on the swatch, on my olive undertone skin tone, it now looks more gray, don't you think? It's interesting how eyeshadows can translate on the eyes, but these mattes so far, I can distinguish these mattes from the cream to powder formula, but they are still very creamy mattes, like they're creamy buttery to the touch. And the shimmers in this palette are like the luxurious soft shimmer that can work on the crease as a transition shade, kind of a shimmer. Except for this one right here, Flutter. This is the show-stopping shade in this palette you'll be able to use as a transformative shade for any of the other shades. Next we have Lucy, which I feel like is a lighter version of Faye. We have a shimmer called Palladian. So bright. This shade would be perfect for inner corner highlight. Belle, Dusty Rose. Last but not least, we have Oz. Oz actually has kind of like a interesting shift to it. It has a darker base color and then it has a lighter green. It reminds me of the first color where it has that pink shift. This one is interesting as well. So these are all the swatches of the palette. On my olive skin tone, again, a lot of these mattes that look green in the palette pulled more gray. So suddenly in the swatches, the palette look a lot more wearable, don't you think? This color, it has a lot of brown or gray in it, so if I blend it out, I bet it looks more gray than green, like sage. And then this color would be great to deepen up any look. This color is a perfect bronze for any natural look that you want some shimmers for. This one, of course, show-stopping. I cannot wait to use it in the demo. Inner corner highlight, although it looks really green in the palette, actually not so green. So all of these suddenly, like except for this color, which is sage, see, now that I cover that up, it looks kind of like just a normal natural palette with an olive twist. Okay, I am excited for the demo now. Now that I have this palette on hand, I realize why I was drawn to this color story, even though it might look a little bit too green and not as neutral, makeup lover friendly like me. Because I'm obsessed with this mini Glam palette and it has some greens olive kind of tone in it. Of course, I would love this kind of color story because this color story I absolutely love. I love this color. It's so flattering on my skin tone, all of this. See, we also have these kind of taupey shades similarly to these two here. We are going to try to swatch the Mini Glam and Zendo because Zendo also has some of the shades that are kind of similar. You also have this rosy kind of options here, right? Similar to these rose and pinkish colors. And then you have the deeper green and the lighter green here, kind of similar to these greens. Let's see if we can swatch this one, the Zendo, and the Mini Glam to mimic the look of these colors. Well, not really. I would not say that you can dupe you know, the same kind of effect with these colors. Yes, they are similar. Or for example, this deep green in the Zendo palette might look similar to the one in Retro Glam is a lot cooler in tone. It has more gray in it. This one clearly is a warmer shade. You can see that, and when it translates on the eyes, yes, when you blend it out, it might look very similar, but it might also has that color differences that you might be able to pick up. You pair them together with like a cool tone outfit and you have a warm green on your eye. It might not match as well, I'm not sure, but that's something to think about, right? Even though they're extremely similar, you can see overall here is a more warm, it's a lot warmer, and it has more earthiness. Those are the swatches and comparisons that I have in my collection. I haven't used this palette yet and I cannot wait. And now that we are done with the swatches and looking at the beautiful palette, we can reveal this together. On this eye, I thought we are going to stick with the red and the grayish plum bell. This color adds such a nice shading, very natural flare with a corner brush. I want to see if it has any pigmentation. Let me run that on the bottom lash line as well. Definitely pink. It's a beautiful color. It's so blendable. And I think I could have used it as a transition shade as well. It just looks like that kind of color that can be, you know, softened into the crease. But I'm glad we used the first color because now, oh wow, we have a very nice base to go on. And then with the same brush, I'm going to dip into Maxi. And then we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna keep it very close to my lash line and smoke it out. And a little bit on the bottom lash. For some reason, this combo remind me of Tom Ford eyeshadow. Honeymoon, I think it's called. The quad. I tried it out and I was like, well, this is cute, but it's not $90. Now I wish I have a Tom Ford. I'm gonna go back to Flare. Let's add a little bit more. We kind of lost a little bit of the pigmentation of it. Wow, this is really moody and vampy. I love it. To finish this up, I'm gonna grab a pretty dense brush and let's try out Flutter for the inner corner. As I expected, that color is killing it. It's a really soft sparkles. It's even softer than the topper shade in the I Need a Nude palette. This one is definitely kind of like a wet effect. An eyeliner brush and dip into Jazzy, the deepest shade, shimmer shade in the palette, and use it as a liner. I want to see how pigmented or how deep this color can get me. When you look at the palette right now, beside these two colors, you don't really have any deep shade. So I don't know how, you know, skin tone friendly this palette really is. Of course, it's a pastel palette, so it has a theme. That's it for the first look. It's pretty much just very soft. I tried to make it deeper, but it didn't go super deep. And although I really like the final results, I don't know how much you would like it if you have deeper skin tone than me. So for the second look, I want to go more of the green colors. Of course, I would like to try out like this color and this color, maybe to deepen it up, incorporate as many shades as possible. I'm a little terrified of, you know, kind of these two. A little bit intimidated by this shade here and this shade here, but maybe I'll try to use this green evergreen as a liner and just to see how deep, again, it can take us. First of all, again, blending brush, I'll deep into Lucy first, which is the lighter version of Faye. I just want to see what kind of color this is and before we dip into Faye. I was surprised by the swatches, how gray these colors look. Gray mimics shadows, and when I wear eyeshadows, I think grays are more user-friendly than greens. So although this palette looks super intimidating online, after I swatch it, I feel like a little bit more comfortable with it. Try Faye and see if we can really deepen that up, because Lucy is more of like a base color for me. It doesn't really do much. It adds a little bit of gray. Okay, now we can see. On my lid, okay, it's definitely an olive gray. That definitely added some smoke. Oz. I see why, like, if you're not used to it, you might think, oh, why it looks kind of ashy and kind of muddy. Kind of the vibe that this palette brings. All of these colors, because they're muted, they has a lot of gray in their undertone. So that's just something you need to keep in mind. It doesn't look green. I like that. I don't like a bright color. Then I'm gonna grab my finger and going to Oscar and do it all over the upper lid. I want to see what kind of color this is. So this could totally be an inner corner highlight moment. Finally, I'm gonna grab the eyeliner brush and dip into evergreen. Like I said, we're gonna do a liner. Cream to powder formula, easy to move around. It holds its pigmentation, but not so much. I think that gives me a little bit more room to play versus something that is so pigmented right away. It's a little chalky looking compared to this eye. I'm going to go into Faye for my lower lash line. Let's do Palladian and then Flutter on top of it. Okay, and this is the look done. I definitely prefer the pink look, although the green, I feel like I need to learn a little bit more. The colors in the palette are really muted. That's the main problem I have. They look kind of ashy. They all pull kind of gray on my skin tone. Besides that, I feel like this palette is more neutral than it might look in the pan. And I'm going to continue to play with it and keep you posted, of course, so make sure you subscribe to my channel. We're going to come back later, in a few weeks and do more looks with the palette. I want to, explore some more options in here. Obviously, we haven't used all the colors yet, so stay tuned for that. But make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts below. Did you get this palette? Are you excited for it? What do you think about it after you see, my review? Do you think it was worth me getting it? Let me know your thoughts below. And as usual, make sure you stay warm. It's the winter now, and I will see you in my next video. Until next time, don't flop.